Hello, this is the 20th episode of the Bluegrass Blues podcast. I'm Amy.
And I'm Jesse. Have you been out in the snow recently? Because it's just like been a nightmare in Louisville. For everyone out there, we all know that we've just gone through this major snowstorm that's cut across the country. It's created like huge snow drifts. There's ice all over the roads. And I've been out driving in the past couple of days, and the roads are drivable, but the sidewalks are impossible to walk down. If you're going on a walk just in general, you have to walk in the street. And Amy, you had something horrible happen on your block.
Well, it could have been worse, but yes, a water main broke in right on my block in Old Louisville, and we had sort of a torrent of muddy water that rose all the way to almost flood our cars on the street, but it did not flood the cars, so that's what I'm really grateful about. Also, it wasn't wastewater, it was drinking water. I'm grateful about that. We didn't have a boil advisory, but we boiled anyway. And there's still a big gaping hole on the street right around the corner from my house.
Right. I was driving this morning and I was actually going in your direction and saw that they had closed off the road. So there's been a lot of road construction in Louisville in general. So every other day there's a new barrier that makes it impossible to get anywhere. But everything's fine at your place now? Or?
Well, it's very difficult to get in and out. And, sidewalks, residential sidewalks are the responsibility of the property owner. And I would say it's a bit hit or miss in Old Louisville as to whether those property owners typically, I hate to say this, but typically landlords of rental property are not consistent with, making sure that the sidewalk is safe. And a lot of the homeowners who are, the homeowners themselves have been plowing, shoveling their sidewalks so that we can walk safely.
Right. I've noticed that there are certain streets where if it's like an apartment complex, they have shoveled the streets, but if it's not an apartment complex, people aren't going out to do anything. I've cleared off a small patch in front of my place, but if you look at my block, I'm probably one of two people who've done that. And if you go where we park our cars, like in the alley way behind the house, that's all ice right now. So it's very dangerous to walk out there. I've almost wiped out.
Well, and also, we have this exit for Old Louisville off of I-65 North. And I was driving on the interstates last night back from my choir rehearsal and just around, and there's still icy snow on the sides of the lanes on the interstate, and not all of the exit ramps are properly plowed. So I couldn't get out of the lane onto the exit ramp to get onto this, onto the exit, and I got honked at, almost hit by a car because I couldn't navigate around the ice.
Yeah, and it's the ice is a problem, not only in driving, but ice is a problem in being in our neighborhoods. And we're talking about a different kind of ice, where we've been seeing all this stuff going on in Minnesota. They're doing the border agents are doing all kinds of horrible things, but people tend to think this is only in other places, but as you pointed out, it happened in Louisville this week.
Yeah, in our neighborhood. Just yesterday, there was an abduction, a violent abduction of a gentleman with a valid work permit, and it was north of Old Louisville, and just north of Old Louisville. And he was violently wrestled to the ground, and a knee was put on his back as he was arrested and taken away. And he was just voluntarily coming into work to be sure that he could give money to his family for their groceries. So they don't know where he is, and they don't have money for their groceries. This is completely illegal. And indefensible. And I've just got to say, as someone who is working with LSURJ, LSURJ, Louisville Showing Up for Racial Justice, and our Community Defense Network, if you haven't gotten involved yet, now's a really good time for you to do that. We've got a 24-hour hotline that we really need help with, especially if you're a Spanish speaker. And this community defense hotline is our go-to hotline with any sightings of ICE. Today, I went to I went to a family health center and several Latinx restaurants and grocery stores, and I handed out these flyers that are bilingual about you have constitutional rights. Do not open the door if an immigration officer comes to your home, etc. And we've got the community defense hotline number, which I'm just going to go ahead and say everyone needs to have this hotline number. It's 502-830-9398.
And the thing about the flyers that you say you have, they're really the size of business cards. So it's not something where you have to pull out this big piece of paper to like weed through. It's very concise in terms of what your rights are as a citizen or as an immigrant who's here legally, or as anyone who like walks the street.
Deserves due process.
Right. And we keep talking about like they're picking up people off the streets and they're picking up immigrants, but we haven't been saying that this is racial profiling at its worst, and they are consistently doing this. And 2 years ago racial profiling was seen as something that was inexcusable, and now it's just the basic mode of operation for these goons who like come from other places, who don't live in the state, and they just they've invaded. They are invaders.
They are.
And they're
the Gestapo. I mean,
we're supposed to accept this as being the new normal. And I think that's a problem we're facing, where people are seeing this now as a new normal and not questioning it. But it's not only the problem at the federal level, we have problems at the state level, because the state legislature is also like imposing all these weird new laws against us. And
they are. But before we get that, I wanted to talk about a specific case of racial profiling in Louisville. This is from Louisville Public Media on January 27th. In Louisville, half the people charged last year in license plate reader cases were black. About a quarter of Louisvillians are black. Half of the folks that have been arrested using flock cameras are black. And most of the cameras are in majority minority neighborhoods, so they're racial profiling, Jesse.
Right. That's one of the things that we keep noticing, is that when police actions take hold, they are more focused on the minority communities. And these flock cameras, for people who don't understand what that means, those are cameras that are essentially like tracking people on the roads. I think they were used for speed, but they're also used to give tickets when like someone runs a light or something. So the logic of this is that they say 50% of the you said 50% of the
yes.
people arrested are
yes.
black. And if the 50% of the people are black, and the black community makes up 25% of the Louisville population,
roughly.
What that means is that they're putting the flock cameras in the minority neighborhoods.
Yeah.
They're doing that more, which should be a sign for people to just realize that, yes, there is still racial discrimination going on in the police department, that the target is people of color. And this all fits into what I feel is the acceptability of ICE by our mayor, because if he's allowing this camera surveillance to take place in minority communities, that shows he doesn't care about that minority community. Since he's let ICE run rampant in the city, that means he doesn't care about the immigrant community here.
That's correct.
So he's going for the white vote. So what does this say about the white population in Louisville? Are they willing to accept this? And I don't think everybody is, because as you say, there are people who are volunteering with L-Surge, who are out there in the streets. In the demonstrations I've gone to, it's been pretty much maybe 90% white.
Yeah. Well, an L-Surge is for white people to be standing up for racial justice, because our black and brown friends and neighbors have always borne the brunt of this work. So, and I just want to say about Mayor Greenberg, you know, Attica Scott has a really good Substack now, and I am paying for her. It's very modest price to have her voice out there. And she says to Mayor Greenberg, we need to end the complicity with ICE, publicly declare that LMPD will not act as immigration enforcement. And she also says, remove flock cameras and prohibit their use for immigration enforcement. So these are local things that you can do. And I'll talk about more of those in a second. We are right now, Jesse, as you know, in the state legislative session. It's a long session, and it's a shit show, I gotta say, for a number of reasons. You know, we have a Republican supermajority. The budget bill is terrible. House Bill 500 is terrible for working families. Here are a few examples of why it's terrible. It cuts financial aid in higher ed. It cuts school bus funding, which if you're a Louisvillian, you know what a cluster that was last year. It freezes K through 12 education funding. It fails to account for extreme federal cuts to SNAP, that's food stamps. It fails to account for extreme federal cuts to Medicaid, leaving 35 rural hospitals at risk of closure. So we've really got to step up and be calling our state reps and senators to not have this draconian budget bill. And then there's other crazy legislation like expanding concealed carry to 18 to 20-year-olds in Kentucky.
Oh, which is another bright idea from the Republican legislature. It's again, this is this idea that you have to arm yourself because there are invaders, and that's what the Republicans are saying essentially, that they're creating this situation in which if everybody's armed and everybody discharges a weapon, but I think one of the keys here is that if they could get away with it, they would say that they were going to reduce the age of gun ownership from 21 to 18. They would say for white people, because let's look at the reality of it. If a black person has a gun and is concealed carrying, the likelihood of getting shot is, I would say, much higher than it is for a white person with a gun.
Right.
And this whole I don't even know why they're introducing this bill when their president, the Republican president, Donald Trump, has said that you shouldn't go anywhere with a gun. You shouldn't be outdoors with a gun. And, they'll say that, he said you shouldn't be at a demonstration with a gun. But what's the point of the concealed carry law if you're not allowed to carry a gun concealed wherever you go?
Well, and Alex Preddy got shot. He had a concealed carry, a legal permit,
yeah.
And they took the gun and they still shot him 10 times.
Yeah.
Also in the state legislature, Senate Bill 86, this is from Senator Philip Wheeler, a Republican of Pikeville. He wants to require Kentucky State Police and local sheriff and police agencies throughout the state to enter into formal agreements with ICE. Terrible, terrible idea. And I don't know if you all know how to do this, but the Legislative Research Commission, I'll look up the phone number, there's an 800 number. They exist to hear from you, from us, the constituents. And we can call when they're open, which their hours are really good. I think it's till 8 p.m., but we'll look that up. So you can call and say, I disagree. I want my state senator and my state rep to vote against House Bill or Senate Bill XYZ, and they will relay that to your representative and senator. So this is a way, while the legislature is open right now, for you to have a say. And it's really important.
But I think you have to also look at the fact that this legislature is going out of its way to do things undercover.
Yeah.
Because that whole thing with the gun
the construction
issue.
too.
Well, with the gun issue,
yeah.
announced that they were going to send it to committee like the day before,
Right.
which no one knew because the public isn't allowed in the legislature because they've closed it off for renovations. So legislators are meeting somewhere else. They have announced, in terms of the gun bill, they said like the day before that they're going to move it to this committee that no one knew about, so there's no time to organize to deal with it. And then the next day, the legislator passed it. It went through the legislature. So people have to be aware that you can't wait on things like this. There has to be a way to immediately contact your representative because right now the Kentucky Legislature, run by Republicans, a supermajority, is just railroading things through. They are just sending things through. They're not letting people know what's going on. And when people find out, well, it's already a law. So then you have to go through the whole process of undoing this law, which takes longer than actually putting it out there. That's, this thing with the guns, this thing with the how they're taking money away from rural areas, which is another issue that sort of bothers me because, yes, people in Louisville are being hurt by this, but people in the rural communities are being hurt even more by this. And their voices are either not being heard or their legislators are not dealing with them because, who's had a town hall meeting in various communities other than, I think Massey has had one in his district. Our Democratic representative here has had town halls, but I don't think anyone else has. And there are congressmen, we have senators. They're not showing up for town halls. So the question is, do they know if their constituents care about these things or what their feelings are on these things? But the second part is, do they even care what their constituents think?
Right. So the LRC, the Legislative Research Commission, the phone number is 1-800-372-7181. And they also have an Espanol number, so you can push the number for Spanish and leave messages there. This is a really important tool right now. Another terrible bill is Senate Bill 1, which basically these Republicans in Frankfurt want to take all of the decision-making out of our elected school board members and put it on our superintendent. By the way, our superintendent does not want that power. He says he should not have that power. But, again, racial profiling is part of this too, I think, Jesse, don't you?
Well, yeah. But the thing is, our superintendent is also a new person, so he wasn't around.
He's black.
Yeah, he's black, but he wasn't around when the discussion began. It's like they're imposing something on him, and he's coming from another school district in another part of the country, which is probably doing it right. But the legislature here has decided that they're going to just impose their stupidity on the rest of the state. And
they want to set them up for failure, right? So that they can have charter schools. And
right.
Get
So they could say that, look, we're giving him all this responsibility. Mm-hmm. We're taking the responsibility from the school board. Mm-hmm. When he fails, then we can take over the school system.
Exactly.
That is the point.
That's it.
And we just seem to be walking into this. And there's another legislator, and it's some woman who's introduced a law that's going to ban the teaching of DEI from grade school through high school. So here's another concept of, we don't like history or what history has shown us. So instead of dealing with the past and learning from it, we're going to ignore it altogether and pretend it didn't happen. So, to me, that's the sign of a very stupid person. So whoever this legislator is who's introducing this must be an idiot. But then maybe I'm being shrill here. I don't know.
I want to mention another terrible bill, House Bill 76. This is a bill that would make proof of citizenship or lawful status a condition for pretrial release. And what this means is, under House Bill 76, this is again from Attica, someone arrested and charged with a crime could be held simply because they can't immediately produce documents proving that they're a U.S. citizen or lawfully permitted to be here, even if they pose no flight risk or safety threat. So, and the bill also requires local jails to immediately notify DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, when someone can't produce those papers. So this, again, taking away due process from us, from our neighbors, it's just completely unconstitutional and illegal. And we need to understand what's happening in our own legislature right now. So I would definitely go to legislature.ky.gov, take a look, read the news. If you can find it, read Attica Scott's Substack and other folks like the Kentucky Lantern. And please, get your calls and your emails in.
Right. One thing we should point out, I think we're getting to this now, is that we've been giving a lot of information, and people are probably out there thinking, well, I don't have time to go out into the cold and do this. I've got to work, and I don't know what I can do. But there have been these national forums that you can just Zoom meetings that you can log into to listen for an hour or two, just to get an overview of what's going on. Because didn't LSearch have one last week or something?
Yes, they did.
And
all a lot of our trainings are actually filling up because more and more people are joining LSearch's Community Defense Network. But still, take a look for LSurge, Louisville, surj.org, I believe, on the web. There's a good Facebook page. There's tons of information to plug in. And there's also Indivisible. They're very active. Take a look at them. 50501 we've talked about before. And Jesse, you mentioned to me about a Zoom call about press freedoms.
Yeah, this Monday, the NABJ held a sort of like a town hall on freedom of the press, and it was led by Roland Martin, who used to be on television a lot, but he's not there anymore. And what he was talking about, it was a number of, the thing was called Not on Our Watch, a national town hall on press freedom. And it involved, it was put on by the National Association of Black Journalists, NABJ, which is a national organization that I was a member of. I didn't renew my membership because I'm not in the profession anymore. But these are, the recent arrests of journalists in Minneapolis. They were pretty much all black journalists who were arrested here. So that's another sign that there's this enormous amount of racism that's going on in the country right now on the federal level. And Don Lemon was arrested because, for those who don't know, there was a protest at a church in Minneapolis. And the reason the protest occurred in Minneapolis was because the pastor of the church runs ICE in Minneapolis, which is this alleged man of God is persecuting
our most vulnerable citizens, residents.
Honestly, this guy would persecute Jesus. If
Right.
Jesus came to America today,
Well,
this
wouldn't get
guy,
in.
this guy who runs a church would make sure that his family and his family would be harassed. He would be harassed, or he would be put in jail, shipped off to some who knows what. Because if you say that ICE wouldn't do that, they busted a 5-year-old boy last week, and they're constantly using children as bait to get their parents, which is creating all this terror at schools. And I was looking at something where this comedian had created his own little ICE reporting thing where people could call him and tell them, report on people. So he got this call from a kindergarten teacher somewhere in the East Coast. And the woman said, "Well, yeah, the boy was born here, but I think his parents are illegals." And she wanted the parents deported. And it's like, this is a teacher. So this woman is a Nazi. She is a Nazi. She is what we saw in Germany back in the 30s, where people would inform on their neighbors because the government was because they believed in what the government was doing. So here she is. The guy is. He's playing it straight through this whole process. And at one point he says, "Well, I checked it out, and I'm sure you'd be glad to know that the family is here legally, and that the little boy is not a threat to national security." And she got pissed off because she said he was being like sarcastic with her, and sarcasm isn't enough for this woman who called this in. But these are the people doing this now. These aren't like ICE agents. These are Americans who are turning in their neighbors, which is what this administration wants you to do.
And I just want to also say, I listened to a really good interview with Ava DuVernay, the filmmaker, and Timothy Snyder, who wrote the book On Tyranny, which is really worth reading. And it's important. Yes, it is like the Gestapo. It is like, and I'm Jewish, and I'm terrified for my friends and neighbors, and it's just horrible. But this is also reflective of the racism that we've had in this country forever. We've had slavery, we had Jim Crow, we had urban renewal, all these things. So a lot of people of color and black folk are saying, don't call it the Gestapo. I mean, this is America.
It is the Gestapo. We're trying. We're now what's the word? Sanitizing the evil, and that's the next step to let evil win. If you say it's not as bad as it is, then it becomes acceptable. Going back to this Black journalism conference. One of the things that struck me at the very end of it, the moderator was talking about things aren't like they were in the past, where you had newspaper owners who actually cared about freedom of the press and the community. And he specifically mentioned the Binghams in Louisville at the Courier Journal, it's like that was back. The Binghams were, for all my criticisms of them in the past, the Binghams were in the forefront in dealing with human rights and civil rights.
Good
Back
local
in the 60s.
reporting.
Yeah, they did deep local reporting. They didn't care about we're going to, as Gannett does, and I know this for a fact, Gannett cares more about, we don't want to offend anybody, so that way people won't not read us because we're not offensive. So they just sanitize everything. The Binghams were saying that discrimination is wrong, busing is right, people should be, all these racist attitudes are wrong. And but that's like the past. That's when the Bingham sold, that was almost 30 years ago, 40 years ago. So and then just to the icing on the cake for me is this: when you look at local coverage of the demonstrations, and you pointed this out to me, I think WDRB did a piece last week on another demonstration in Louisville against ICE, but there were 6 people who were anti-demonstration.
They start the piece with those 6 people.
Right. They started the piece with 6 people. For one, they never tell you how many people were actually at the demonstration. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if there were 100 people or 1,000 people at this demonstration, but they found 6 people, and they decided to make them the equivalent of all the other people in this demonstration. And the people who they interviewed in support of the administration and support of ICE, they came off to me as morons. But there's no challenging them there. They don't know what they were talking about. But instead of just giving us some kind of balanced coverage, they saw, here are a bunch of people who are making noise, so let's report on them instead of deal with what the demonstration was about. So that's another example of, we used to have better news coverage. We don't have that anymore. You can't rely on any of the major media organizations, as I've said this before, because they're now owned by billionaires and they have their own interest. My former owner at the Washington Post has completely sold out that paper, and today they announced layoffs of like 100 or more people. So, and I've known about that for a while because I do keep in touch with people at the Post, but they just announced that they're going to get rid of people, which is part of the reasoning they
It's
give.
the aim of this administration.
Yeah, but
for this
the
time,
reason
too.
they give is because the Post isn't making enough money.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post.
Mm-hmm.
He has enough money. There's not, there at a certain point, that argument that there's not enough money is bullshit. He can, as I've said before, he can get the change out of his couch and fund the Post for like a year or two, but he's not going to do that because he's a tool of the Trump administration. But he has a financial interest because Amazon Web Services is like very heavily involved in the surveillance world. That's the reality. He has a space company that he wants to get contracts for to go, to do what Elon Musk is doing out with SpaceX. Jeff Bezos, what is it? I think it's Blue Origin is the name of his space company.
The greed has really, it's had such a corrupting influence with these oligarchs.
It's even beyond greed now. It's this sense that they feel that they are gods, and they, whatever money comes to them, they feel they deserve, and it's like you're not going to get any argument from them. But in terms of actually doing public service, they are not doing that, and
Right.
they will give you. You'll see an announcement where Jeff Bezos gave $1 million to something, and I've done pieces on this on our website, where I just look at what he's donating, compare it to what the equivalent would be of the median income Kentuckian donating, and what he is giving to organizations, getting all this great coverage, is essentially pennies to him. He's not giving money; he's giving pennies,
Right.
And he's expecting praise for it,
So
as all the billionaires are.
I want to segue from what you just said about public service, because one of the things that I don't want people to think is that we're just overly partisan here. It just happens to be that Kentucky has a supermajority in the legislature, and a lot of those legislators are harming working families here. But there is a Democrat that I want to call out, and that's Daniel Grossberg. I know him. And he's the state rep for District 30, and he sexually harassed women. The owner of Foxy's in Louisville confirmed the claims that Grossberg would inappropriately touch workers, insult them, use foul language, and offered women to have sex with him.
What's Foxy's?
Foxy's is one of the girly clubs
So it's
here.
a strip club.
Yeah, it's a strip club.
Okay.
And then other claims involved Grossberg making inappropriate comments to female workers in Frankfurt. So we were going to have a hearing. The women were going to, several women were lined up to discuss this. And instead of doing that, they just, and Bashir did call on him to resign. But basically what happened is he was slapped on his little finger and charged $2,000, a $2,000 fine to make it all go away. This is not right. And this is another example of women not being listened to. If you don't think as a woman that your rights are not being eroded, you've got to pay more attention. Roe v. Wade was overturned. The Epstein files, they still haven't released all of the files. The women still haven't gotten their say. And here we have a gross state rep who was just fined $2,000 and he gets to continue to do his job.
And let's just say that people are under the Trumpers especially are under the impression that we're talking about the Epstein files because we're trying to get to hold Trump, and that's No, the point of the Epstein files is that anyone who's there who has abused women deserves
Raped children.
rape children. Yeah, I misspoke.
I'm using your words.
Yes, and that's the other problem. You have to be very clear on what happened. They have raped children, and they are in the Epstein files. There are Democrats and there are Republicans, and I say get them all. Just get rid of all of them. It doesn't matter what party they're with. Doesn't matter how much money they've got. They should be in jail. Just as this representative here, who's a Democrat, should be out of office because, and it's up to his constituents now to get rid of him because
That's
obviously the legislature is not going to get rid of him, and the powers that exist in the Democratic Party, in the Republican Party, are not going to deal with people who are miscreants.
I mean, Al Franken had to leave the Senate
Yeah.
for things that weren't as bad as what Daniel Grossberg has been doing here.
Or things that aren't as bad as what happened in the Epstein files.
Right.
Because, these are the molestation of children.
Right.
So, it's we have to stop looking at these. Whenever someone comes to you and says, well, you're just after Trump on the Epstein files because he's a Republican, that's not the case. If Bill Clinton is there and if Bill Clinton has done things, he should go to jail. And if Bill Gates, who was part of, who was in close contact with Epstein, if he was there, if Elon Musk was there, they should be in jail. So this isn't a partisan issue. This is, except the Republicans have made it a partisan issue, but this is an issue of morality, and
Right.
we've already seen that Republicans have no morality.
Well, and we have a Democratic mayor here, Craig Greenberg in Louisville,
yeah.
and budgets are moral
Yeah, right.
documents.
Yeah.
And it's clear that the mayor's priorities are misplaced. One of the examples is this $6 million land purchase for a 92-acre first responder training center. And again, reading Attica Scott's Substack, in plain terms, this is a massive police training compound, right? And like the notorious Cop City in Atlanta. And one of the things that she says is that Louisville's already pouring money into law enforcement at record levels. In fact, the fiscal 2025 budget allots nearly $500 million to public safety and a whopping $242 million to the police department alone, which is a $20 million jump in 1 year. By contrast, only $25 million total is allocated for affordable housing in that same budget. That's $242 million versus $25 million. This is immoral.
Right, but the other part of this too is that economically, if you invested in other things than police, you would have lower crime rates, because if people have homes, or if people have food, they're not struggling, they're not stealing to get it. Yes, there are people who do this because they're bad people, but the attacks that we're seeing are not on, as the person in the White House said, it's not like these rabidly violent criminals coming in from other countries. These are people who are doing daily work. They're like just trying to make enough money to feed their families, but because they came in a different way, they are considered major criminals, unlike the people who Trump is pardoning for
Right.
major crimes. Like he pardoned a drug lord, and then he goes off and seizes the president of Venezuela, saying he's a drug lord.
Right.
We've seen, and it's documented, that if you're rich enough in this country, you can buy a pardon from Donald Trump if you've been convicted on a federal charge. This means that states have to start charging people, because the president can't pardon people who are convicted of state crimes.
Yeah, and I wanted to put this Cop City in context. Researchers have found that all of this money that's going into the SWATification, the armor and firepower, has not made our streets safer or reduced crime, but it does erode community trust and funnel money into weapons and tactics rather than prevention, which is exactly what you're talking about.
Well, the other part of this too is when you talk about crime, you also have to talk about prisons and who owns the prisons these days.
Right.
Prisons are now a corporation.
Right.
They're not, in some cases, they're not run by states. They're run by corporations. And it's in the interest of the prison to have more people there because it's more money for them. So in turn, these prisons can do things like, we've seen the television shows, the fictional television shows where there are judges who put people in jail because they say they committed crimes, but they're innocent, but the prison needs more people because the judge has an investment in this. Now that's on television, but that happens in real life as well. There are judges throughout this country who are convicting people, sending them off to jail because the judge has a financial interest in the prison. So there's that part of it too. And I'm sure our legislature is not going to do anything to address that because it's a Republican-led legislature, and I would imagine that they have money in the prison system.
Well, I want to go back to some practical and political moral things that we can do, and then I want us to talk about Kentucky's Grammy winners and whatever else fun that you want to talk about. But it's really important to ground ourselves in what solidarity looks like in action. So again, the urgency is now. Things are happening rapidly across the country, and this is all coordinated and very organized, and we have got to keep people alive. So practically, building community defense, training volunteers in legal accompaniment. We need bilingual speakers for our LSurge hotline. These are measurable, immediate actions that reduce harm right now. It's past time to wait for leadership, for politicians, for all the things, right? Now, politically, when mayors and governors quietly cooperate with federal enforcement, call them out. When universities or local agencies share data or facilities with ICE, demand answers. So we use the ballot box too when officials refuse to act. So she said, and Attica says, Kentucky's legislature is being weaponized. This is not hypothetical. The Kentucky General Assembly is a battleground for anti-immigrant policy. Mm-hmm. And if you want to see these bills get overturned, you've got to take action. You've got to call the Legislative Research Commission, right? And we've talked about what to say to Mayor Greenberg. Well, to our governor, protect Kentuckians without militarizing our streets. Protection does not equal occupation. And refuse any state cooperation that turns local jails into deportation pipelines. And then for Congressman Morgan McGarvey, your favorite, and for U.S. Senators McConnell and Paul, work with colleagues to end abusive federal practices, including serious oversight of DHS and ICE. In fact, work with your colleagues to abolish ICE and end qualified immunity. So there's a lot of things that we can do, and that's kind of my role in the podcast, is for you not to lose heart and lose hope. There, again, we are stepping up in numbers that Donald Trump and his Project 2025 people and these Republicans around the country were not expecting, and we've got to be really persistent and consistent with our work.
Okay. I just got this message that not Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell's recovering after he checked himself into the hospital on flu-like symptoms. So yeah. Mitch is, he's still in the hospital. And, I'm sure this is one of the reasons he's not running, because he is physically unable to be a senator
and
anymore.
Mentally.
Yeah, but he's in the hospital again. Every other week he's falling down.
Yeah.
Every other month he's like having press conferences and losing his train of thought and just freezing there. So, well, his next year is the election for his position.
No, it's this year.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's this year, and everyone, we cannot assume that we are going to have free and fair elections for these midterms. You've seen Trump talk about nationalizing the elections. The good news right now is that even in Kentucky, the lawmakers are saying, no, this is a state function. But we have got to ensure free and fair elections, or things really are going to be horrible for much longer.
I will give the legislature some credit for not deciding to redraw the congressional maps, because that was something that was very possible. But I think what's happening is that Republicans everywhere are seeing that the Trump magic doesn't work anymore, because you look at what happened in Texas. There was a state Senate race in Texas this last week where the district, which went 17 points for Trump, completely turned around with 14 points for the Democrat. So it's like a 30-point shift. And if Republicans are losing elections in safe Republican seats in Texas, there is hope for Kentucky. There is hope for people out in the rural areas who by now should be fed up with everything that's going on, and should by now realize that the reasons they can't get health care, or they can't feed their children, or or if a disaster happens in their district, they can't get federal help. They should know by now that this is because of the Republican Party, since the Republican Party is who they put in office. So we have to see what happens in the next election. I will be amazed if Kentucky's not going to turn blue in the next election.
No.
We know that. But it'll be interesting to see if any part of the state sees a shift, because I think there's still a possibility in the Lexington district that Andy Barr's not running for anymore. There should be a strong Democratic candidate, because that district is vulnerable. If you look at the election cycles, that district has gone Democratic more than, in some cases, more than Louisville has. So we have to be, again, people can't say I don't pay attention to politics, because that's an unjustifiable cop-out these days. They have to actually know what's going on. They should be able to go into the voting booth if they let you vote, because that's the other thing. What was the law that they were trying to pass recently where, it was aimed at women, and they didn't say it was aimed at women, but it was. But the essence of the law is that if your name doesn't match the name on your birth certificate, you can't vote. Now, what does that mean for married women? Because they have changed their names, all their current documents are with married names. If they're supposed to use the name on their birth certificate, by design, this law means that they can't vote.
Right.
So we have to see how this is going to play out.
Many.
We have to see how this plays out, and I would advise people to especially go to their primary elections this year just to see what kind of what's a good word for this? Fuckery they're trying to pull off on us. Because if you're going into waiting for November to cast your vote, and then you get to the polling place and they say, I'm sorry, the name on your driver's license doesn't match the name on our voting records, or the name on your birth certificate doesn't match the voting record, you can't vote. There's nothing you can do because that's that day, and you can't vote the next day because they're not going to let you. So people have to be aware of these things, especially women have to be aware of this year.
Yeah, so I really want to lift up the two Kentuckians who won Grammys this week. Tyler Childers, he won his first, and Chris Stapleton won his 12th.
I don't know country music at all.
Well, and Tyler Childers is actually very progressive, and he has done a lot. Actually, I think Silas House wrote lyrics to one of his songs, and it was about just embracing our diverse sexual orientations and being inclusive and things like that, which you don't hear a lot for country music.
Who's Silas House?
Silas House was our poet laureate in Kentucky. He's a gay man. He's written unbelievably awesome novels. Everyone should read Silas House, including you, Jesse.
Okay.
He's awesome.
I've been told.
Okay.
So, I don't know their music at all. Is it like your typical country?
It's
Is it
country.
Like, okay,
Yeah.
it's full country.
Right.
And this was at this week's Grammys, right? The
Yes.
most recent Grammys.
Yes.
So that's good. I mean, it puts Kentucky on the map again, which
Well, we've always been.
we're always on the map, and
yeah.
we're always big in the entertainment field.
Mm-hmm.
And the Grammy Awards this year were kind of interesting because there were a lot of speeches that specifically referred to ICE and the evils that they're doing.
Billie Eilish.
Bad Bunny.
Bad Bunny was awesome.
Yeah, and I know a bunch of others.
Yeah.
I saw clips of them
Right.
making, ICE was the subject to be discussed. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the Emmy Awards and in the Oscars this year, because I expect that there will be a lot of these kinds of speeches or comments where a lot of the entertainers are, Bad Bunny making his speech was interesting because he was speaking at one point. He didn't have a word. He knew the Spanish word. He didn't know the English word. But the thing about Bad Bunny is the MAGA morons will say, well, he's not an American. Well, yes, he is. He's Puerto Rican. Puerto Rico is America. It's part of America. And that brings me back to the time when Donald Trump went down to Puerto Rico after the hurricane. And someone said that he wanted to speak to the president of Puerto Rico. That's him. He's
Right.
the president of Puerto Rico.
And I don't know if you all have seen the teaser clip for what he's going to do at the halftime at the Super Bowl. But he basically has a little video. You should definitely look at it. It's the America that I love. And he's
Trump or Bad Bunny?
No, Bad Bunny.
Make sure we're
Bad
clear.
Bunny. And he's dancing with everybody in this video. He is dancing with men, with women. He's dancing with gay people, straight people, trans people. It is so awesome. It is so inclusive. It'll make you feel so good to watch this little teaser. And everybody, watch him at the Super Bowl. Oh, and another thing around entertainment. I've been told that all of us should watch Becoming, the movie about Michelle Obama, and everybody, of course, should not watch the Melania film.
I didn't know there was a movie about Michelle
There
Obama.
is
Is this new?
Becoming. Yeah, I think it must be based on her book. Isn't that what her book was called?
I think that's the title of her book. And I'm seeing all these things about the Melania documentary has just been a bomb,
Right.
which was funded by Jeff Bezos. So let's remember that. And the reviews have been horrible. And there was also, one of the things that Donald Trump keeps saying is that liberals are paying demonstrators to show up for things. I saw that there was something on, there was one service that was trying to give people $50 to attend the Melania movie in Washington, D.C. So, whenever you hear the Republicans say that the Democrats are doing something that sounds shady, for one, they're making it up, and for two, it's something the Republicans are doing at that time. So let's not be deceived by what their efforts are. So, yeah.
And by the way, when we were talking about entertainers, I don't know if you heard Springsteen's song about Minneapolis, and Billy Bragg came out with a great song, and all kinds of singer-songwriters are coming out with songs against ICE, against this authoritarian regime. It's really exciting.
It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Mary Gauthier, really good one.
Who's that?
She's a singer-songwriter, Mary Gauthier. Oh, she's so good. Check her out. Her song's great.
It'll be interesting to see what happens this weekend, because this is Super Bowl weekend, and we make references to sports when we do this, but it's the Seattle Seahawks against the New England Patriots. And as we said, Bad Bunny is the halftime show. I saw that of course, the right wing is going to have their own halftime show on a different channel at the same time as Bad Bunny because they're dicks. I mean, that's the only word I can think of. But
it won't be nearly as good.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll get someone like Kid Rock, which is, he's never going to do a halftime show. But it's this, we are in this phase where we're in two different countries, and there's one part of the country, I feel we're dealing with reality, and the other part is just dealing with this fantasy world where they're constantly in fear, and I think that makes them cowards. They're just always afraid. They have to have guns.
They have to be white.
They have to be white, and if there's, it's like if
Men
there's
have to be married to women. Men have to be in charge of the household. Women shouldn't be working.
men can't play women's sports,
Right.
that kind of thing. So I'm going to go off on a tangent
Yeah.
here, but when boys and girls play Little League Baseball together, and boys and girls are playing sports together before, like, they get into, while they're in elementary school, they're in the same thing because they're essentially the same physical condition until a certain age. But, the this whole thing about trans athletes is a waste of energy.
It's a distraction.
It's a distraction from things that are really going well. It's a distraction, but it's also another example of racist, sexist,
Yep. Homophobic.
homophobic behavior dominating a certain political party.
Yeah,
And-
targeting vulnerable people who are not criminals.
Right, and it's like, okay, we're going to Andy Barr's running on this anti boys and girls sports ticket, which the numbers aren't there to make this an issue that, well, it's a pretend issue. Well, it's an issue for the people who are involved,
Yes,
but in terms of
but the numbers.
the numbers don't generate the outrage that
And the
it
media
should,
picks up on these.
because it's an easy story.
Right.
It's easy, like, oh, okay, boys and girls sports. I think I spoke about this before, but I was in San Francisco when there was this whole issue about a trans athlete playing volleyball, and it's like Donald Trump got involved in that as well. And there was one special thing where this athlete spiked the ball and it hit the player on the other side in the face. And the right-wing reaction was, "Oh no, this guy, he almost killed this woman playing volleyball. He shouldn't be allowed to play." I saw the play. I saw it when it hit her in the face, and I saw the woman laugh after it happened because it's just like it was a volleyball play. So this idea that there's danger is something that's made up by the right wing. They are I don't know what they're afraid of, but they're afraid of everything, and they're in.
Well, they want to consolidate their power and their money with
Yeah, but-
their white friends and families.
But why do poor white people in rural areas fall for this? Because they are. The fact that they think that Donald Trump cares about them is absurd.
I think it's human nature to want to find an other, and to put that separation is not real. We're all one human race, one species. But I think it is human nature to otherize and then have hierarchies, and I think that the Republicans really play on that with rural and lower income white voters.
And the result is that rural and lower income white voters
Lose.
they're in worse shape
They
than they
lose.
were when Democrats were in office.
I really like what's happening with progressives and the message that, okay, so you voted for Trump, and now you're really upset. Like, you really see what's going on. You do not want executions of people like Renee Good and Alex Pretty happening. Come on board, join us. We're not going to shame you. We're not going to, just come. Now's the time. And I'm encouraged by the fact that Trump's approval numbers keep declining, and that more and more white voters who voted for him, and certainly black voters who voted for him, and certainly Latinx voters or immigrant voters that voted for him are waking up. Just come around, do the right thing. Look out for your neighbors. Let's get these people out of office this fall, and really keep fighting this authoritarian regime that's taking away all of our human rights.
I just one little note on that portion it's unfortunate that it took 2 white people to get shot before people reacted to this.
Absolutely.
Because there
I
were,
went to a vigil in our neighborhood the other night, and they listed people's names,
Right.
Latinx people, people who've died in the detention facilities, children who've died,
Yes.
and most of them are not white people.
right, they're either black or they're Hispanic.
And
they're,
people
they're
don't
brown
know their
people.
names.
Yeah, people don't know their names, but it takes 2 white people getting shot for
Executed.
people to, yeah, that's right, executed, for people to react. So that's on this country. That's something that we should be ashamed
We
of.
are a racist country.
Yeah. Anyway, Super Bowl weekend. What are you doing this weekend?
Well, I can't say that because I don't want anyone to be harmed, but
Okay.
there are some watching parties because this Bad Bunny Super Bowl halftime show is a really big deal, and some of us community defenders are actually going to be out in the cold so that people, immigrants and people who like football and Bad Bunny can watch it safely, for God's sakes. So I'm probably going to be doing that, which is an honor and a privilege.
I'm personally going to be indoors. As I
It is
can't
very
handle the
cold out right now.
So I think we've covered a lot of things here today, and we're an hour into this already. So and
Thanks for
you've got places
joining
to
us.
go.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks everybody. We will be back in a couple of weeks, and
Do one thing.
share this with people you know. We will put some links in the on the webpage that to references of what we talked about, and we will see you all next time.
Bye.
Our closing music is by John Chamberlain.